Namaste and welcome to this Monday edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand. Ladies and gentlemen, what is worship and what is prayer? Can we worship anywhere? Can we pray anywhere? A place of worship, does that then define itself to a certain religious denomination? Because there are other religious denominations or theologies which do not even believe in the aspect of worship. From there itself, the context and the way the Places of Worship Act 1991 has been named, labelled, to the circumstances in which this act was drafted and the manner in which it was passed in Parliament itself point to an anomaly that needs to be corrected. That is one point of view. And from therein stem many other aspects which believe that this act needs to go. The larger construct being that this is an act, when shortened to POW, which also is an acronym for prisoner of war, tends to hold just the Hindu Aastha prisoner. The Places of Worship Act came soon after the demolition of the structure at Babur. Many years later, the courts have turned around and ruled that that structure indeed was built and that area itself was Ram Janmabhoomi. That is the place where Ram Lalla was Virajman. So if a place of worship has a character, then should that character not exist perennially? That's what the courts have opined. Can a structure which had a religious character, which is different to another religion, can it be used, usurped and superimposed with the character of another religion? A, is that fair? B, does the other religion even allow it? All of these have been dwelled upon and opined on by the courts themselves, including the case of Ram Lalla Virajman. Amidst all this comes the impleadment by the All India Muslim Personal Law Board, which is saying there will be communal unrest if this act is done away with or if the court hears this matter. So the courts are being told, don't hear this matter because there will be communal unrest. So much for constitution, debate, points of view and respecting the opinion and the wisdom of the courts of our country. That there are entities which will turn around and tell the courts, you hear this matter because I want you to hear it, or don't hear this matter because there will be communal unrest. Listen to what, and let's have a look at what this impleadment motion says, ladies and gentlemen. It is urging the Supreme Court not to hear pleas challenging the validity of the Places of Worship Act 1991. The 1991 Act is a progressive legislation. How is it progressive? This the court should not listen, whether it's progressive, regressive or oppressive to upon faith. But the Muslim Paksh believes it is progressive, so their court should not hear it. That's their impleadment motion. In line with the secular values of Indian polity, what does the word secular mean? Or has this word been debased and corrupted to the extent that the meaning itself is being changed now? Secular from whose point of view? Because if it is secular, then there should be no Places of Worship Act, ladies and gentlemen. Because secular is as far as the governance of the state, not individual faith. Cultural rights of any section not violated. But what about the presiding deity? Visible and invisible. Perennially, that land belongs to the deity who's Virajman. That's what the Places of Worship or Sanatan Aastha says. So what about that Aastha? Repealing of act can lead to communal tensions. Why? Who's the AIM PLB to say that it will lead to communal tensions? Repeal would create fear in the minds of Muslims. Why would there be any fear of minds of Muslims? Because is this repeal of this law, will it take away the right to pray for Muslims? Or will it give the chance of the right to worship for Hindus, ladies and gentlemen? Impleadment application to the Supreme Court, this is what it says. Now, let's try and look at the Places of Worship Act 1991. Constitutional norms, are they hit? That's the question. Article 25 is the right to religion. right to pray, profess, practice, propagate. Is this or is this not violated? Because the right to pray, practice the act of worship is being taken away from those who believe that this is the Janmabhoomi of their Isht. Article 26, right to restore religious places, maintain, manage, administer. Is that not violated? Especially in cases like that of Sringar Gauri. And even at the Qutub Minar, where the Ganesh idols are now very, very clearly visible, given that those barricades have been removed, ladies and gentlemen. Article 26, right to culture, restore, preserve, script, culture. Is this not violated? Article 14, right to justice. Article 13, bar on laws infringing on fundamental rights. My right to pray, my right to worship as a Hindu, as a Sanatani. Is that inferior to the right of a Muslim, or the right of a Christian, or the rights of a non-Sanatani? Simple question. Should that not be equal in the eyes of law, ladies and gentlemen? That's why we ask, is the Places of Worship Act holding Hindu Aastha prisoner? The right to pray and the right to worship, are they different? Many of these aspects have been mentioned by various interventions. One of those who are party to this plea that is challenging the Places of Worship Act is with us this evening, Vishnu Shankar Jain, advocate from the Hindu Paksh, Dushyant Sridhar, Vedic speaker and writer, and Uday Mahurkar, Chief Information Commissioner and author of the book on Veer Savarkar. Namaste, gentlemen. Namaste. Thank you very, very much for joining us this evening here on The Right Stand. Should the courts take the right stand or not is one aspect. Because law should be equal to all. The right to prayer and the right to worship is equal to all. Can my right to pray or worship be inferior or superior to your right to pray or worship, Dushyant Sridhar? Since the scholar amongst us, I'm going to start with you. Where would you stand on this? Is there this concept of visible and invisible deity and the perennial presence of the deity? And how is that different when we do prana pratishtha in terms of Sanatana Pratha to the other theological beliefs? Dushyantji.
Namaskaram Anand and namaskaram to my fellow panelists. With respect to the subject that we have chosen for discussion and brainstorming today, my knowledge in the Constitution or probably the legal aspects is very little. But of course, I can offer a few of my suggestions, before which, two quick lines. Any of our discussion is not meant to attack any particular religion, followers of any particular religion or community. Nevertheless, being a person who has learnt a few things in Sanatana Dharma, I can vouch that Sanatana Dharma doesn't stop only with going to a place of congregation and doing mass prayers. There is a concept called Agama, which is the other side of Nigama, which is the Veda, wherein we do establish the Vigraham, the Murti, the Prana Pratishtha of that particular deity, which is very, very peculiar and particular to Sanatana Dharma. And the Western religions, when I talk about Western religions, Christianity or Islam or even Judaism, may not believe in this particular tenet where there is a particular idol. That is why for us Ram Janmabhoomi is very important, because to commemorate that particular place, there is a Prana Pratishtha done for a little Rama Lalla for many, many centuries and millenniums. Similarly, Krishna Janmabhoomi. Similarly is Kashi, because Kashi is a Jyotirlinga Kshetram. So, whenever probably a constitutional person, a legal person has to consider this option, what they'll have to do is understand Sanatana Dharma at its roots. That this is not a religion that only believes where people get together and worship. There's much more to it, because we believe that the piece of stone which was carved in Mahabalipuram now becomes a deity for us the moment Agama comes into place. So I feel there should be a very, very careful consideration to the law, because at that point in time probably there were some riots and then the law was brought into picture. Like how now when there were protests and then the farm law is taken back, why can't this law be taken back as well?
Uday Mahurkar ji.
You see, in my book, Veer Savarkar, the man who could have prevented partition, co-authored with Chirayu Pandit, I have devoted one chapter to pan-Islamism, one chapter to Muslim appeasement of the Congress, and the third chapter of the book is on understanding Hindutva. In that I have used a word called Hindu-Muslim unity at Hindu cost. That is the definition of secularism or Hindu-Muslim unity practiced by the Congress long before we became independent. So, Places of Worship Act is a very flawed act. It is, just look at the past. Thousands of temples were demolished during the medieval period by Muslim invaders. Then a section of Muslim forced partition on this country against the wishes of, for Hindus, it was partition of their motherland. So after that, you have an act which doesn't allow Jinodhar of Kashi and Mathura. Remember, Ayodhya, we have got through the courts. So this, I am not in support of people who are saying that all the places which were demolished by Muslim invaders should be restored. But at least 3, 4 or 10 places which were known places of worship of this community, majority community, should be restored to them. So this act is a flawed act. It is a symbol of Hindu-Muslim unity in this country at Hindu cost. And it also shows, you see, the process of reconciliation cannot begin without a sense of self-introspection on the part of the communities. I am sorry to say, there is no sense of self-introspection on the part of Muslim community, at least their leaders. So this act is very, very biased against the majority community, and I think there should be a rethink on this act. And I think at least, when this act was enacted, at least after Somnath and Ayodhya, at least Kashi and Mathura should have been left open. Here, I am of the opinion that at least 10 places should come back to Hindus, if not 3,300 or 33,000, No, so this act is totally flawed.
But Udayji,
and it was enacted in an atmosphere of deep Muslim appeasement.
Udayji,
I think it will be it will be good on the part of the All India Muslim Personnel Board to understand this whole aspect.
No,
Anand.
Udayji, the fact is, what do you mean by come back to Hindus? The idea is why should anybody take anything which does not belong to them? The other aspect is, if you look at the religious texts, the texts also say, even the Islamic texts very clearly say, the Holy Book says, and every religion also calls around and says, one aspect is political Islam or politicization of a religion, be it political Hinduism or be it political Islam or being Christianity being political. I'm not getting into that. I'm saying, what does the book spiritually say? The book says, you must have a place of prayer which does not belong to somebody else. And the foundation stone has to be theologically vested in that particular faith. That's exactly what Islam says. As far as Hindu pratha is concerned, Sanatana pratha is concerned, sir, once a deity's prana pratishtha is done, then that land and that area, whether that deity is pratyaksh or paroksh, that is visible or invisible, that area belongs to that deity perennially. That is the character for all time. So even as per these places of worship... See, Ji.
Anand, I want to add one more thing.
Ji.
Something which is very disturbing is the kind of threat which is being held out by All India Muslim Personnel Law Board. You see, same thing was being said about Article 370. I remember many people close to me telling me that you please tell people in this government that they should not abrogate 370. Nothing has happened. Today, if you see, so all this while when people like me were saying that it is only 10 or 15% of the Muslims in the valley for holding the nation to ransom, it is proved correct. The kind of reception with Amit Shah has got there. So this threat is not going to work now.
No, but it's not about threat working or not working. I'm just asking you, how is it okay, Udayji, how is it okay that when it is convenient, they'll say we believe the courts, otherwise they'll say they are telling the courts don't listen to the matter, otherwise because there will be riots on the street. Yeah, so you're quite literally holding the ransom, trying to say heads I win, tails you lose, Udayji.
Yes.
So let me just bring in Vishnu Shankar Jain.
Anand, the days of pan-Islamism are now over.
Sir,
Because there is enough Jagruti in the Hindu community.
Sir, if
there
you
is a section of Muslims also would be willing to come along
sir,
with
you
us.
are an
Let me tell you,
author.
add one more. After seeing what has happened in Kashmir on Amit Shah's visit, there might be a large section of Muslims in Muslim community. If they are explained, if these pan-Islamists are not there, they would be willing to come online on this issue, you know.
There are a lot of issues. It's just plain statement of facts, and you're also a historian, Udayji. So if you go back and understand, and this is other authors have also written about it very extensively. The latest being, and I'm still reading the book, so it's fresh in my memory. In India, Bharat, Pakistan, Jai Sai Deepak chronicles this entire thought continuum, which starts from the 9th century with the Hanbali sect, and then it comes into manifest in the 18th century with Al-Wahhab and Waliullah Shah Delhi. So, and then it continues. So, in terms of pan-Islamism, it's never going to go away because there will always be those who will push this thought continuum. But we are Bharat. I'm just saying from, I'm just...
to add something here which is very, very disturbing. Anand, one thing, please listen. There is a book called Taqwiyatul Iman, written by a Maulvi called Shahid Ismail. He was killed in the Battle of Balakot with the Sikhs. That book is taught in every Wahhabi madrasa, non-Sufi madrasa in this country. And that book is virtually poison. It is a stepping stone to extremism or even terrorism for that matter.
So we will get in. That's a separate. What I am trying to say is that there is a thought continuum which people are following. There is a constitution which says equality for everyone in the eyes of the law. In this case, is this act currently denying one particular and a huge section of Bharat's population their right to equality under the eyes of the law? I'm getting into the legal aspect now. So faith is one point and the legal point. Vishnu Shankar Jain. Vishnu ji, can you hear me? Namaste.
Namaste. Hi Anand, and very good evening to all my fellow panelists. I would like to say that the most draconian part of Places of Worship Act 1991 is the cut-off date which has been set in the Places of Worship Act. Because how can 15th August 1947 be the cut-off date? On 15th August 1947, we had just got our independence. After independence, this Indic civilization was duty bound to get the temples and get the places of worship restored. That is point number one. Point number two, if you will read the Places of Worship Act 1991 and analyze it very carefully, it runs into two parts. The first part of Places of Worship Act is Section 3. Section 3 says that no one will convert any place of worship after 15th August 1947. So let me bring in various examples that after independence, maybe let it be Kashmir, let it be any other state in this country, so many temples have been demolished and destroyed. So why not Section 3 of the Places of Worship Act 1991 is implemented, and Muslim leaders who say that the Places of Worship Act is the basic structure of the constitution, why do not they argue that let Section 3 be implemented and all those temples in Kashmir and all those temples which have been desecrated and demolished in various parts of this country, they may be restored back. That is point number one. The next point is, if someone will go into analysis of Section 4 subclause 2 of the Places of Worship Act, and if you compare it, what does Section 4 subclause 2 do? It takes away the rights of judicial review. And let me tell you, from L. Chandra Kumar's case till Indra Sahani, and in so many cases and judgments of the Honorable Supreme Court, it has been categorically held that judicial review is the basic structure of the Constitution.
Yeah.
So now I hear various Muslim leaders arguing on various channels that secularism is the basic structure of the Constitution. If secularism is the basic structure of the Constitution, then judicial review is also the basic structure of the Constitution. If I want to go in the court of law and I want to bring a dispute, then why can't that dispute be adjudicated by the third pillar of this democracy? That is another aspect which has to be gone into. Now the third aspect is, that why Ram Mandir was given an exemption. How can a parliament or can a body like parliament enact a law where they will exempt Ram Mandir's case because there was a huge protest and huge andolan going on in the country, and the other matters will be closed? So that is my reservation against Places of Worship Act, that Parliament cannot enact a law depending upon the revolution, depending upon the protest in the country. If you have to set a benchmark, it has to be set for all the temples at one go. And the last point which I want to highlight in today's debate is that if a deity is there in existence, and the judgments of the Supreme Court in Ram Mandir's case say in para 116, 117, that once a temple is established, once a deity is established, it continues till the end of the time. The vow to establish a temple continues till the end of the time. So what's the point of having para 116, 117 when you have demolished my temple in the past? And why not this Indic civilization can raise a voice in the court at least that this was my temple, these are the signs of temple in various so-called mosques, which is against the basic Islamic tenets, and you cannot worship or offer namaz here. And let me tell you, there is one settled Islamic principle that you cannot have a place of worship after demolishing any other faith's place of worship. No Muslim scholar can come on your TV channel and say that we can demolish a temple and we can construct a mosque. So if that's the question, and Anand, I want to put it very strongly on your channel today, if that's the point that you cannot demolish a Hindu temple and you can construct a mosque there, so why are you stopping us from raising this voice at least in the courts of law? No one is going on the streets, no one is going and talking about bloodshed. We want our rights, we want at least to raise this voice in the judicial forum that there was a temple, there was a deity existing in the past and it exists till today, and you have demolished our temple and you are trying to convert our place of worship. But why can't we argue that?
Correct.
Why do we have to wait in courts of law for 30 years, 40 years to get a basic relief of admission? Let me tell you, Anand, it is very shocking. I want to bring it to you today to your channel. On your channel, I want to bring it on that in Kashi says the first was filed in 1991. And from past 30 years, we are debating on this point that whether this suit is maintainable or not, whether the Places of Worship Act is attracted or not. When we filed this suit in the court of law, recently we got a judgment on 12th of September 2022, where the Honorable Court held that yes, Places of Worship Act is not attracted in this case. So the narrative which has been built in the entire country about something which is not written in the Act, we are trying to read something which is not written in the Act. Because in Kashi's case, the Places of Worship Act is not attracted. In Mathura case, the Places of Worship Act is not attracted. Because the religious character, and this is what the Supreme Court has also observed in the hearing in Places of Worship Act, the Places of Worship Act does not bar adjudication of the religious character. The religious character of Places of Worship has to be adjudicated. And then only you can take a view.
Let me ask you this, and I'll bring back and I'll bring in Dushan Sridhar also on this. When they say that don't ask for any other place, why would anybody else ask for any other place if that place does not belong to them? And why would anybody else say don't ask for this because you know that this doesn't belong to you and you're holding on to it? Why would you want to hold on to something that doesn't belong to you if your intent is not nefarious? That's one. Secondly, why would repealing of this act create fear among Muslims? What is it that belongs to Muslims that is being asked for? What is being asked for is what Hindus believe belongs to them, and it is for the courts to neutrally decide based on facts and scientific verification and investigation. Vishnu Shankar Jain. It's quite
correct. You are absolutely right, Anand. See, the point is this, that we are going into the question of verification. We are going into the question that whether our deities, which are visible and invisible deities, if they have been consecrated in the past, if they have been established and Pran Pratishtha has been done in the past, whether they are existing or not. And for that, a factual legal exercise, a factual judicial review exercise has to be conducted. Now, the problem here is that when we are going to conduct this legal exercise, a kind of threat is being mounted in the judicial process, and I'm shocked. I must say this, I'm shocked by the affidavit of All India Muslim Personal Law Board. The way this affidavit is drafted, it's not a plea. Anand, let me tell you, it's not a plea before the Supreme Court. It's a kind of a threat that if you will adjudicate this, this will happen. If you will adjudicate this, that will happen. I think in this way, any judicial forum cannot adjudicate a matter, because the Supreme Court is going to test the constitutional validity of the Places of Worship Act. And when the Supreme Court is all set to hear and test the constitutional validity of Places of Worship Act, All India Muslim Personal Law Board is saying even if you issue notice, initially they filed a application. Jamaat Ulama Hind filed an application saying that even if you issue notice, there will be law and order problem in the country. Now, the second affidavit is by All India Muslim Personal Law Board, which says that if you adjudicate this, there will be unrest in the country. So I am saying that if they believe in rule of law, if they believe in the justice mechanism system, how can you say that there will be unrest in the country? And Anand, I want to bring back this entire discussion to one single point. That if I am able to prove in the court of law that I was prior in time, and the characteristic of a place of worship is of a Hindu religious character, and the deity is existing there, the pran pratishtha is done there, my shivling is existing there, you please stop doing wazu over the shivling. Can I not, I want to ask this very humbly, can I not ask this question even in a judicial setup, in a democratic setup?
No, why shouldn't you have the right to ask this? Why shouldn't you have the right to ask that question? Because the Constitution accords you that right, and it gives up, and the court is vested with the powers to adjudicate on this. So those who are trying to say no, Dushyant Sridhar, let me ask you, even in as far as their scriptures or as far as the Islamic scriptures are concerned, the Islamic scriptures also very clearly say that any prayer that is offered on somebody else's foundation or religious foundation is not acceptable, and it's prayer. There is no concept of worship, it's only prayer. So why would there be entities who knowingly would want to offer at a prayer where that prayer is not going to be accepted, and still hold on to their place where others, their own fellow citizens, compatriots, want to go and offer prayer and do worship and deny them that right? What's this whole logic?
Anand, I heard the views of my co-panelists with all attention. They were very thought-provoking as well. Now, quickly a few points. One, our discussion, whatever we are having on this channel, is not meant to instill fear on anybody, because the current day Muslim, the current day Christian, the current day any religion person is not responsible for what has happened in the past. That said, on the other side, a few counter questions which I do face in a lot of debates is, they often ask, why can't you, okay, you believe this is the place, this disputed place is what you used to worship before, which is not yours now. Why can't you worship the same idol elsewhere? This is one counter that question that I face. See, there is a kshetram called Panchasara Kshetram in Tamil Nadu on the banks of Kaveri called Tirucherai. So, it is a Sara Nayaki, Sara Natha, Sara Vimana, Sara Pushkarini and Sara Kshetram. So the Sthala Puranam states that the Lord chose for the devotee that particular place. Now the moment you give me 2 acres of land in Nungambakam in Chennai or in Ville Parle and say bring that Saranathan here, the Sthala Puranam does not say that okay, he can be shifted to Mumbai.
Correct.
So that place becomes very important. Second, another question that I face is they often ask, in Sanatana Dharma in Hinduism, you state that God is formless as well. Besides form, there is a formless way of worship.
Personal
so if you're going to
impersonal,
propitiate God in a formless fashion, why can't you do it anywhere? See, I would like to remind people of a very, very ancient temple, at least 1700 years old temple. It's called Avudayar Kovil, near Pudukkottai in Tamil Nadu. It's a Shiva Kshetram.
Yes.
So if you go to any Shiva temple, you will expect to see a lingam there. But imagine you have the Garbhagraham there, the Sanctum Sanctorum, and there's no idol. So it's the formless form that is being worshipped there. Even to worship the formless form, you need a temple. So be it the formed way of worship or the formless form, you need a particular temple to worship. So the kshetram becomes important. Just a few words in the last, just 10 seconds more, Anand.
Sure.
What I feel is all these confusions and everything with respect to the act and everything is coming because one section of the Muslims or the Christians, they all agree that things have happened very bad in the past. And they are not the people who oppose any of these things. There are a handful of people like they are there in every religion. They feel that we need to venerate those people, propitiate those people who have committed those acts. For example, if Babur has done that particular act, any genuine Muslim who follows the rules of or the words of Allah will say he has done a bad thing, we should give back this place to him. Simple. But when they start doing a Tipu Jayanti, when they actually they try to dig over or rubbing salt over the wound. That is when the debate comes whether we have to take back all the mosques, which is wrong. So just at least give away two of those temples, let's say Mathura and Kashi. You see, when you exhibit those two extra steps of generosity or magnanimity, Anand, I'm sure people who adhere to Sanatana Dharma, which is like at least 75 to 80% of the country, they will be more than generous enough to say that let's bring an act to state that we are not going to dig any more into the past. So those two steps are required. You know, I feel it's not always
No, but I'll tell you what.
Submissive.
See,
and
shouldn't the
subservient.
magnanimity, my counter is, Dushyant Sridhar, I respect what you're saying, and a lot of people would say, all right, just, you take one step and I'll take two steps. But the fact of the matter is the magnanimity should have come from those people who would have said that, oh, historical wrong has been done to you and we do not identify with it. If this is your place of Aastha, we have got
Maybe
no
at
business.
least through
No, we've got no
News
business
18
doing prayer
debate,
there.
They'll get it.
No, not just that, Dushyant Sridhar. I'm saying that the Islam itself prohibits you from offering prayer. That prayer will not be accepted. So why should I offer prayer at that place? And rather than locking that place up, you go and offer prayer where you've always offered prayer, and historically that's relevant. That's how you talk about samabhava. That's how you talk about living together in harmony. It's not that, like Uday Maurkarji said, that this peace is at the cost of one section of society, that this ekta is at the Hindu cost. Then that's an imbalance. Then you are not being balanced in your approach. Uday Maurkarji, please tell me, should the courts, which is going to hear this matter tomorrow, should they listen to this impleadment, or should they look at that and say, are you advising us, are you pleading us, or are you threatening us?
The court should tell them that the virtue they are holding the courts to ransom. The language they are using, what you showed today on your channel, this is virtually holding out a threat to the courts. And the courts should take a strong view of this tomorrow. And days of such threats are over now. It was, you see, whole thing is when Gandhiji was killed by Godse, that was the opportunity for people who were not rooted in Hindu tradition or who were against Hinduism, to thrust their views on the country. It continued for almost 60 years. But this is an age of national reawakening. And I fully agree with Dushyant Sridhar that if they show the magnanimity of saying that, look here, we can give back about 4 or 5 places, then Hindus are very large-hearted and very kind in that sense, But this whole thing about, a flawed act being used to thrust pan-Islamism on the country and to thrust on the country a model of Hindu-Muslim unity, which is at Hindu cost. I think that the nation is not going to tolerate this. Anand.
Well, we'll see how the courts respond and what happens in the hearing. We'll track this case very closely. Multiple interventions have come in and they've all been bunched together, and the court is going to hear this tomorrow. That is on Tuesday. We'll come back and then look at what happens in court. Vishnu Shankar Jain, Uday Maurkarji and Dushyant Sridhar. Thank you very, very much. Namaste. We're going to take a very short break. When we come back, we turn the spotlight towards Bengal. In Kolkata, one of the suburbs. Is law and order crumbling?